Hey guys, Josh from soccerreviewsforyou.com, bringing you a video today to talk about something that I think is really interesting in regards to soccer cleats in general, and that is the design and development of all these shoes that we have today. I think there's a lot of misconceptions around how this process works, especially when it comes to signature models, and I thought I'd make a video kind of explaining some of those misconceptions and sharing some general opinions along the way that may open your eyes a little bit in regards to how these big companies come to these final products that sometimes they're great and sometimes you find them to be a little bit questionable. No concrete answers here, no real concrete proof on how all of this actually happens. It's kind of more common sense in terms of what I'm going to be talking about in this video. Could the process be a little bit different than what I'm saying? Absolutely, but I just want to talk very generally about the topic and share, again, some misconceptions that I think people have around the development of soccer cleats in general. So to start things off, I want to talk about how a lot of people don't seem to understand how difficult and how complicated it is to actually make a soccer shoe. If you were truly to start from the ground up on a brand new pair of shoes, there are so many different things to consider. Obviously, the shoes have to be able to be mass produced. That is probably the biggest thing that I don't think a lot of people seem to understand when it comes to soccer cleats. If Nike's going to come out with the Superfly 5, they have to make sure that they can make tons and tons and tons of Superfly 5, because if there aren't enough, people are going to be unhappy. Again, supply and demand obviously plays a factor in any brand new shoe. The other thing that a lot of people don't seem to consider when it comes to soccer cleats is that they're not trying to make the perfect shoe. No company is. They have all these different lines for a couple of different reasons. The main reason is marketing. It allows them to spread out their brand and just make it a larger scale in general. If Nike has 25 shoes on offer, if Adidas has 25 shoes on offer, if every brand has 25 different models to choose from, you're gonna feel like you have a really good selection. And maybe because of that good selection, you will see one shoe in particular that you like, and maybe you're going to be, more motivated to buy from that particular brand, and hopefully once you buy the first shoe, you'll buy the second shoe and have some kind of brand loyalty because they have so much selection. So that's kind of one of the main reasons why they offer the Tiempo line, the Mercurials, the Hypervenoms, as well as the Magistas. Is one line in particular the best? No, they're just giving you a good variety of shoes, which is not a bad thing at all. I know I'm saying it's mainly for marketing purposes, but it's good for the consumer as well, because again, you're getting that the option of having as much selection as possible. I don't think is ever a bad thing. So if you like super thin, go for the Mercurial line. If you like something a little bit more padded, maybe you might prefer the Tiempos, and every brand has this to a certain extent. Adidas has several lines, Puma has several lines, even Under Armour and Mizuno has several lines. So again, you're seeing this from every single brand. It allows them to, again, make their brand seem a little bit more widespread and give them more to show off, essentially. So another thing that a lot of people don't consider when it comes to the design and development of soccer shoes is that the actual input that they get from professional players, I don't think is as significant as a lot of people would like to think that it is. Soccer is not quite as great of an example, but if you think about basketball is a really good example, because Nike has had some really big blunders as of recently with signature models that are supposedly developed alongside these signature athletes to make a shoe that is quote-unquote perfect for them. If you guys remember LeBron James with the LeBron 11, where he basically didn't wear it very much all season long. He had issues where the final version of the LeBron 11, the final design, didn't fit his foot properly. They were causing him discomfort and he quite simply couldn't wear them. It happened to Kevin Durant with the KD 7, where he was coming back from a foot injury and the KD 6 just fit him more comfortably based on the foot injury that he had. So he didn't really wear the KD 7 all that much. So you see this with these really, really big brands that if you would assume that Nike was developing the LeBron 11 with LeBron James making everything exactly how he wanted it to be, when the final product came around, when it came time for him to actually wear the shoes on the court, that they would be able to fit him properly. But they didn't, and it was just a really, really big mistake. I think that there's a lot of misconception in soccer right now with the Messi 15.1. Messi doesn't wear the off-the-shelf version of that shoe. It's really, really difficult to say what version or what modifications he has to his shoe in particular. Sometimes you see his shoe with a leather upper. Sometimes it looks like it's synthetic. Sometimes he has the extra support cage on the outside. Sometimes he doesn't. He seems to kind of flip-flop all around with that kind of thing. And that's always been the case with him and the F50 line. He's always had kind of his own custom leather version of the shoe. And like I said, it's never been an off-the-shelf version that you can actually go ahead and buy in store. His is basically fully customized. But you look at a shoe like the Messi 15.1, which is, I think, without question, the least popular model or least popular line right now from Adidas. People don't like how it looks. People don't like how it feels. It's quite simply not the perfect shoe by a long shot. So you're probably wondering, why would Messi have a shoe that he doesn't actually wear? That's just because he's not a shoe designer. He's a soccer player. That's kind of the best way to put it, guys. These professional players, they're paid to play soccer or football, depending on what country you're in. And that's what they do. He's not at Adidas headquarters for months and months and months drawing up designs and deciding on materials and stuff like that. That's all up to Adidas. Adidas will probably come up with a couple of designs, show them to Messi, or maybe they just have one design and they show it to Messi and he either says yes or no. He tries it on. Do you hate this? No. Can we work with this particular design even if we have to make some modifications? If he gives the okay, then I assume the project moves forward and the final product gets released to the public, regardless of whether or not that's the exact shoe that he is going to wear in game. Because, like I said, 9 times out of 10, that is not the case. You see this obviously with Cristiano Ronaldo and his modified version of the Superfly 4. His has the shortened collar. I definitely think that it has a custom shape as well, just based on pictures that I've seen, and who knows what else is happening on the inside of that shoe that's different from the retail version. His colorways, obviously he does have his signature colorways. Yes, there is obviously inspiration from Cristiano Ronaldo and his story and his life, and maybe he has some input on the colors and the patterns and stuff like that. But ultimately, again, he's not the one designing these shoes. Neymar is another great example. There's been a lot of controversy with him and the Hypervenom line. Obviously, when the Hypervenom Phantom 1 came out, they switched him out of the Mercurial line and made him the poster boy, the main headliner for the Hypervenom lineup, and he wore the Phantom 1 pretty much all the way through its run. When the Hypervenom Phantom 2 came out, he did start wearing the Phantom 2, but then he ended up switching back to the Vapor 10, switching back to the Mercurial line for a short time, and now he's wearing what's basically a modified version of a Vapor 10 that has the graphics of an actual Hypervenom. But again, it's nothing like what you can actually buy in store, either from the Vapor line or from the Phantom 2 or the Hypervenom finish. It's kind of its own custom makeup. And again, this is just a great example of the development process and how it works. Basically, when these big companies like Nike and Adidas, they'll develop a shoe basically 95% of the way there. Once a shoe is 95% done, they'll give it to the pros to wear at a practice or 2 or 3 or 4, who knows how many practices, and they'll say, hey, what do you like? What do you dislike about this shoe? Is this a design that you would be comfortable wearing in the future? And I would think that more often than not, professional players will come back and say, yep, the shoes work, they're good, I don't really have anything to change. Because again, these guys are focusing on playing. They're not shoe designers. Sure, I'm sure there are some people that are professional players and they happen to be shoe enthusiasts as well, and perhaps their feedback might be a little bit better. But for the most part, again, these guys are just playing. As long as the shoes aren't killing their feet, they're going to wear them. They're being paid to wear them at the end of the day. That's why Ronaldo's wearing Nike. That's why Messi is wearing Adidas. That's why any big name player is wearing the brand or the shoe that they're wearing. They're under contract to represent that particular brand as a spokesperson. They're endorsed by the company. So If Puma was paying you to wear their shoes, you'd wear Puma. If Under Armour was paying you to wear their shoes, you'd wear Under Armour. That would be the case for any brand. And as a professional player, you're just going to take the contract that whichever company is going to offer you the most amount of money, that's the brand that you're going to be wearing for that particular season. So that's kind of the major misconceptions around soccer shoe development, especially when it comes to signature models, that a lot of people think that these professional athletes, these big name players, the Cristiano Ronaldos, the Messis, the Neymars of the world, are actually sitting at the brand headquarters designing and drying up their own shoes, deciding on materials and stuff like that. That's not the case, guys. There are lots and lots of people hired in giant teams to develop these things and work on them. And like I said, a lot of these shoes, I've mentioned this in previous videos, are developed way in advance. You're talking 2-3 years in advance. They already know what's going to be coming out 2 or 3 years later. So basically how it works with input from professional athletes is, like I said, the company will design a shoe basically 95% of the way there, give it to professional players, and as long as nothing goes horribly wrong, that'll end up being the final product. So that's the big thing, I think, as far as the development process is concerned. I think another question that a lot of people would ask when it comes to what ends up being the final product with a lot of shoes is, how did this get passed? How did this kind of end up being approved as a final product? And you're still going to see questionable models from pretty much any brand. I think the Messi 15.1 is a great example of a shoe that, how did they think that was going to be a successful product based on looks, based on materials, based on the construction, just based on everything around that shoe? The Messi 15.1 is not a bad shoe, but if you're going to take who is arguably the biggest name in world soccer or world football right now alongside Ronaldo, and give him a signature shoe that only he will be wearing, you think that they would give him something a little bit more special, or perhaps what I think most people would agree is perhaps a little bit better looking. But again, those decisions, I don't know how those come about. I don't know how those decisions are made. I don't know who makes those calls. That's just something that I guess slips through the cracks every once in a while, but you see that with every company. You see cars that come out that you think, oh my gosh, that is the worst looking car I've ever seen, but it gets passed, it goes into production, and it's up for sale. So the same thing can happen with soccer cleats. Again, these companies are not trying to make the perfect product. They're just trying to give you different options in hopes of basically getting your business. So that's pretty much it in terms of what I wanted to talk about in terms of design, development, and kind of the involvement of professional players and signature athletes in their actual footwear. Because again, I think a lot of people just are under the impression that these big name players are designing their own shoes, and that is far from the truth. So hopefully you enjoyed today's video. If you did, be sure to support it with a like. If you have any questions about any of the topics or any of the things that I touched on in this video, or have any of your own input to share, leave that down below in the comment section and we'll get a bit of a conversation going, and I'll answer all of your questions, of course. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all my social media information linked down below in the description as well. And other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video, and as always, thanks for watching.